Before modern money existed, early humans relied on a system of direct barter. To solve this, humanity designated precious metals to act as a universal store of value. To understand where we are going, we must dig up where we began.
History records the shift from simple bartering to complex foundational economic thought.
Imagine a world where a simple fish must always buy your daily apple.
Anthropologist Caroline Humphrey argued that no example of a pure barter economy has ever been found. Instead, historical records show that societies relied on gift economies and community credit.
This shatters the classic story found in almost every foundational economics textbook. If the traditional barter narrative is a myth, then how did ancient societies actually function? They used a social cheat code, an informal system of mutual credit and tracked obligations. But when trackable credit systems went wrong, they created an inescapable burden of debt. For a long time, textbooks told us that economies began with simple barter. But in reality, early tribes shared resources based on community trust. These arrangements weren't governed by legal courts or official diplomas. There were no formal courts or judges to enforce compliance back then. Instead, communities relied entirely on absolute peer pressure and social exclusion. Anthropological evidence shows that early tracking systems were entirely informal and community-driven.
For a long time, we were taught that barter came first, then money, then credit. But that is completely wrong.
In reality, credit and debt networks existed long before physical money or regular trade markets were ever invented.
These ancient credit relations were not just casual, unwritten promises between neighbors. Long before coins existed, early humans tracked commitments and resources using simple tallies.
But direct bartering required a perfect coincidence of wants, which rarely happened easily. This friction drove the invention of a shared unit of account to measure all value. Long before paper or metal, humanity relied on mutual trust and shared communal bonds. Today, that ancient social thread has evolved into lines of instant digital code. Because at its core, currency has always been about community and shared value. In harsh environments, mutual aid and resources became the earliest form of currency. This relationship created an invisible ledger of social credit and mathematical value.
Then came the breakthrough, standardizing this trust into physical tokens of value.
As networks expanded, humans began using tangible commodities to measure accumulated value. Among these early currencies, cowrie shells emerged as highly prized tokens of transaction. Harvested from shallow coastal waters, their natural abundance and durability made them ideal standard stores of value.
These shells became highly prized, recognized across vast regions as symbols of universal value.
Because everyone agreed on their worth, these tokens became a standardized medium of exchange. Direct barter transformed into smooth trade, as tokens easily bridged the gap between goods. As trade networks expanded across oceans, cowrie shells became a globally recognized standard of value. All trade in this kingdom must use the official standard assets approved by the crown. When natural shells grew scarce, human ingenuity turned to carving substitutes from stone and bone. Shells and imitation stone tokens were gathered together as valuable reserves.
Each mark ensures its value is recognized everywhere.
From local workshops, shell currencies expanded across vast trade routes spanning continents. Vast oceans became the highways for dispersing these prized organic tokens across new lands.
At the trade posts, these shells became accepted as direct payment for valuable commodities.
Soon, entire vessels arrived, carrying massive fortunes calculated purely in hulls and shells.
An oversupply of shells could completely collapse a local economy overnight.
Even in recent history, some cultures still preferred using these classic shells.
This means shell money was actively used from 2000 BC up until 1900 AD.
For generations, these simple shells held the trust and value of our entire community.
It was a shared agreement, a collective understanding that gave these tokens power.
Because at its core, money is not a thing. It is a system of credit and trust.
Tracking endless debts and mutual favors in your mind became an overwhelming mental burden.
Then came a revolutionary solution, a single, shared symbol to represent all value.
This concept traveled across vast lands, uniting distant merchants under one system. As transactions grew, societies began tracking wealth using physical clay tablets.
Every debt and credit had to be painstakingly carved by hand.
Look at these records. The community ledger does not lie.
These clay tablets became the first permanent records of debts and ancient transactions. This tablet certifies the value of the grain and silver being exchanged today.
But uncoined silver had major limitations before true coinage was invented.